Hello and welcome to our demo about rulers and guides. This is going to be a pretty short one. We're going to be starting from scratch. So if you could, let's go make a new file in Illustrator. So we're going to go File, New. We're going to do nothing too terribly fancy this time. Let's go and make a document that is 8.5 by 11. So kind of normal size of a piece of paper. Keep it at CMYK color. Just one artboard. All we're going to do is just learn some basics of grids and guides today, so we can use that for our upcoming project. Okay, so I got my one artboard here. Hopefully we have a workstation that looks about the same as mine. What we're going to be doing is first setting some presets. So we could go to Preferences or Settings. So I'm going to go to Illustrator, Settings, and I'm going to go to my General. If you're on a PC, remember there's a different way of going about doing that. There's also that little flyout menu for preferences. But for the Illustrator people that are on a Mac, go to Illustrator Settings, General. So we need to pull up these preferences. We're going to make a few very minimal changes so we're all on the same workspace page. So I got General pulled up, but let's jump to Guides and Grids. And as you can see, I have settings like this. I have my guides. You can pick whatever color. I like to keep it classic cyan. Grids, we can differ from there. I usually work with something that I can see a little bit easier. So I work with this bright green. You could pick a color that you like, but maybe you want something that stands out. The style of mine is going to be line. We need to make sure our grid line is every inch and 8 subdivisions. And other things that we need to kind of think about is if we want to have our grids in the front or in the back. And I like to keep my grid up front so I can see it when I'm working. So let's go make sure that grids in the back is not selected. So you probably didn't really change anything. Maybe you changed the color. All the sizing is probably correct already, but we need to make sure that grid in the back is turned off. Okay, once we do that, we can hit OK. And what we're going to be doing is pulling up our ruler first. So we're going to pull up our ruler. If you hit Command R, you can see that there's a ruler that's pulled up at the top and the side. It should be in inches. If it's not, you can always go and right click on that and change it to inches. Hopefully it's zeroed out at 0. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go and pull up our grid. So if you hit Command quotation mark, Command quotation mark, your grid's going to pop up. And sorry, this turns into like, I don't know, the Matrix or something for a minute, but we have this grid where everything's divided into sections of 8 along an inch. So this can be really helpful if we're going and building out a composition, if we want some kind of internal structure. So other things what we're going to do is we're going to go hit View, and we're going to make sure that a few things are on. So if I go to Guides, go View Guides, we can see that guides are hidden. That's okay. Let's go and unlock those guides for right now. Let's click on View again. You know, the hotkey for our grid is Command quotation marks, but you can also do it in View if you need to. You can hide the guide there. Right now I have it snapped to glyphs. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to make sure nothing's being snapped except snap to guide, or snap to grid, my bad. So if we have snap to grid selected, we should be good. And what we're going to do is we're going to go zoom in a little bit. And we're going to go move our guides around, and we're going to give a little border to this, what's going to be kind of like a fake grid system for like a newspaper or something. Okay, so I'm going to go click on the ruler on the left-hand side. If I click and drag, I'm going to have a guideline that pops up. And because I have it snapped to grids, it's going to be going every X amount of grids. It's going to go every 1/8 of an inch, basically. So if you could go drag one over to the left, get to that, 1/2 inch mark, and then go from the top down, go a 1/2 inch down. That should be good. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to go 1/2 inch in, and then at the bottom I'm going to go maybe a full inch. Yeah, let's do a full inch. So I'm going to go, if I hit Command quotation mark and get rid of those grids, I can just see I have my teal guides. So I have a 1/2 inch on the top, 1/2 inch on the side, and a full inch down at the bottom. So we should have something that looks kind of like this, hopefully, fingers crossed. I kind of did that quick. Another hotkey, if you have Command colon, that will make our guides go disappear or come back. So colon is for guides, Command quotation mark is for grids. Okay, so we have that. We got that set up. Let's go do this. I'm going to go, and what I'm going to do is let the computer do some of the work for me. We're going to make a bunch of columns and stuff, but there's a really quick way of doing that. Within Illustrator, when we go into InDesign, there's even a faster way of doing this. But I want to make kind of a grid system here to work in. So what I'm going to do that really quickly is I'm going to hold down on my rectangle, grab that rectangle tool, go and drag it so it fits inside that border that I made. So it should look something like that, if we could see that guy. There we go. So we got that nice little 1/2 inch border on the top and sides, and then we got a full inch at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this split this shape into a bunch of different columns that I can easily work from. So it's might seem complicated, but it's going to be pretty easy to do. Let's click on our shape. Let's go up to Object. And if we go down this kind of drop down, we see there's a lot of different ways to edit that object. There's ways of warping it, repeating it. But what I'm going to do is go to Path, Split into Grid. So Object, Path, Split into Grid. So what pops up is this window that I can go and start to divide things. So I'm going to click on the preview so I can see what I'm doing. And let's first go to the right hand side and divide it into 3 columns. So we can see those columns are happening there. And then I'm going to go divide it into 4 rows. So it kind of automatically does it. It does the math for us. We can see that our sizes of our heights and our width are pretty close. One thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to give it a little gutter. So remember when we were talking about those module systems, we have that gutter, that space in between. So maybe I'm going to go bump that up to like 1/8 of an inch. So 0.125. So that's looking pretty good. I got 3 columns, 4 rows. My gutter is like 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to hit OK. So I got that stuff still selected, or you can drag over and select it all. And if I wanted to, I'm going to pull my guides back up. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm going to go convert this into a guide. So if I wanted these columns and stuff so I could work with, but I didn't want them to print, I'm going to turn them into a guide. So I'm going to go drag over just those shapes. If we have our guide selected, we can't do this, so make sure those guides are turned off for a second. But if we go drag over those shapes, right click, we can make guides. Okay, so they all disappeared for 1 second, but I'm going to go hit Command colon one more time, and boom, we can see that all those shapes were turned into guides. And really you could do this with any shape if you ever needed to. I'm just going to do it over here on the side. So I could make this circle into a guide if I wanted to. So any shape could be technically a guide if you want it to be. Okay, I'm getting rid of that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use this guide and this kind of gridded system that I made just to kind of make a fake newspaper. We can see how that if we're going to be using those columns for the upcoming project for our calendar, we could use this to kind of easily figure out our gutters and our spacing a lot quicker than, sitting down and doing all the math for it. Let the computer do some of the hard work. But I'm going to go maybe to View, take that snap to grid, turn that off for right now. You could leave it on either way, but just remember if stuff's snapping in weird ways, go up there and check it in view. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of use some shapes, use some kind of dummy text as placeholders, and kind of pad this out. So let's go grab a rectangle. I'm going to pick a color. Make sure that's CMYK. If you ever have that little danger warning sign on there, just click on it and it's going to switch it from RGB to the closest version of CMYK that we could have. So I got this shape here. I'm going to go drag it over maybe the first couple quadrants that we have. You can see that it's still snapping to those guides that I made. So we got one there. Maybe let's go grab some type and we'll go do this next set. So just use some dummy type. So we can use this to kind of, space out stuff really quickly, kind of figure out kind of flow. You could work with different shapes, kind of move it around. Really all newspapers have a structure like this. If you wanted another guide, you could always go click at the top and drag stuff down if you needed to divide stuff more. And remember, they're not going to print, they're just there to kind of help guide us, okay? Next thing we're going to do, let's go down to maybe the bottom quadrants, and I'm going to make a cell or a module that's just one square big. I'm going to change the color to that guy. So thinking about our calendar, maybe we want to have some shapes or shaped, days where they're different kind of, objects for each day. Maybe it's like pumpkins. Maybe we're thinking that it's going to be more hierarchical, where every day on that calendar is going to be a different size. You could do that, or you could work with, starting off with a grid, adding a little flair to that kind of gridded cells and going from there. So I'm going to kind of do a very quick kind of maybe calendar spread thing just for a couple days. So got a number that I put on top of this shape, and then it'd be really easy if we're kind of working this way. Maybe I'm going to pull my grid up for one more second, try to even stuff out. It'd be really easy to just, once we make one, it's looking nice, like day one, we could go and copy and paste it. I've selected both the text and the shape. And I'm going to go copy that out for a couple more days. And then we can go start to change things from there. So I made 5 days there. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to go change my colors just really quickly. Looking kind of horrible on the color field, but we got that, and then I could easily go change the numbers. So that could be pretty easy to go get the kind of standards you want for one of those days on your calendar and go duplicate them out and adjust them from there. And then maybe I'm going to go put another text box, fill up this last module, which is some dummy text. Okay, so we got something kind of like this going on, where we have kind of a grid system. We got some dummy text here. We got this purple that's a placeholder for I'm going to switch it black just so it stands out a little bit more, but maybe it's a placeholder for a photo where we got these other spots where other photos could go or days of a calendar. So we can see how it'd be pretty easy working with that kind of gridded system that we established with those guides to move stuff around. We could just really quickly, change up the sizes of stuff. There's really infinite possibilities of moving things around, but it's just a quick, easy way of building guides and grids. So hopefully that was kind of helpful. Other things to kind of hit on, you can go and click and delete a guide as long as they're not locked. So I can go delete that pretty easily. And remember, if we go to view, there are ways to lock and unlock guides. We could add or remove that ruler. We can also just use that hotkey of Command R. And remember, this always trips people up, that sometimes you want to snap to grids or pixels or glyphs, but a lot of times you don't, and you kind of forget about it. Like you'll have it snap to a grid, and then you go to use the pin tool, and it's doing weird things. Just go check and make sure that you're not snapping to something over here. Okay, hopefully that was nice, sweet, easy to understand. Remember, we got that, and last thing, we have that object path split into a grid. Those are the main things that we talked about in this one. So if you got something like this, you could design it up a little bit more if you wanted to. And once you got it all in a nice grid, looking all clean, always save this bad boy as a PDF and call this demo done. Okay, see you all soon.